Hello, and welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents. Today, I am so pleased to be talking with Saralyn Richard, whose mystery Murder in the 1% was a Silver Falcon reader's favorite. It was also a Silver Falcon finalist for Police Procedure and a Chanticleer Clue Award finalist. Her standalone Bad Blood Sisters won a Reader's Favorite Award. It was a silver medal finalist for the Chanticleer Clue Awards, and she also won Best Mystery Suspense Novel in the Speak Up Radio contest. Welcome, Saralyn.
Well, thank you. It's so fun to be here with you, Tracy.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Crystal Blue Murder, which is the third book in the Detective Parrot series. And we'll also talk a little bit about Bad Blood Sisters too. Both books are so good, really, really good. But Crystal Blue is your latest, and this book really opens with a bang, literally. So tell readers a little bit about this.
Well, the bang that you're talking about is a meth explosion in a historic barn in the posh area of Brandywine Valley. The fire department calls Detective Parrot to come investigate with them, and it's at the 50-acre estate of Claire Whitman, and she is a former TV celebrity, famous for being a party hostess and loosely based on my mother-in-law. And Parrot goes out to the scene. He has to wear a hazmat suit in order to work at this fire because it's toxic. Any meth explosion is very, very dangerous. And so there's a procedure for investigating. And as he joins the fire department in the barn that's been pretty much burned, he finds a dead body. And the body is disfigured, so it's unidentifiable. And that, of course, makes this investigation really complicated because it's not only arson, but it's meth. A lot of laws have been broken. And then there's a murder or possibly an accidental death or suicide even with this meth explosion. But until they can identify the body, it's going to be a difficult case to crack. The Claire Whitman, the character, is an octogenarian. She is very spunky and very independent. She owns this property and she runs it the way she wants to run it. And she has a lot of secrets. She has a lot of people around her, her family and a personal assistant and a secret boyfriend.
I know. I love her. She's so much fun.
And I won't spoil the ending, but I'll say that the book starts and ends with an explosion.
Yeah. And so like that's a lot of detail too about the burning and all of that. Where do you who do you talk to? Do you have like resources for discovering these, the details around like an investigation for a fire and explosion?
A lot of my details that I try to use to make things authentic come from research. And a lot of it is direct research where I talk to experts in the field. And I've been so lucky in my writing career to have people who are very generous with their time and their expertise. They're happy to be asked to help with a book. And I've really only been turned down one time by an entity, I won't name it, but they were worried that if they gave me too many details, it might spur some interest in crime, bringing crime to their entity. Oh. So they turned me down. But otherwise, I've talked to probably 50 to 100 people per book. And that's where I get my details. And a lot of times, the things that I put in my books are not what I know personally and or have experienced, but what I want to know. And so I have lots of people to ask questions of.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, authors need resources, and definitely you need a team behind you, to get all the details right. Um, I'm skipping ahead a little bit in my questions, but so what was the last research rabbit hole that you fell down?
I actually have not fallen down any rabbit holes except for that one person, that one entity that turned me down.
Yeah.
And then I had to adjust my story because I wanted to respect their wishes and not compromise their institution. And so I had, that, I guess you could call that a bit of a rabbit hole. I did have an interesting experience once with the West Brandywine Police Department, which is where Parrot works. One day I got a phone call and the person identified himself as the chief of police of the West Brandywine Police Department in Pennsylvania. I live in Texas. And I was like, oh no, they're going to sue me. There's something they found in my books, and I've used their police station in all of the series of books. And so he said, I hear that you're writing about us. And I said, yes. And he said, well, have you spoken to actual police officers in our department? And I said, yes. And he said, well, all I want to know is, have they been friendly? Have they been helpful? Have they helped you with your research? And I said, yes, they have. And I gave him a few examples of things that I had gotten from the actual police departments there. But that could have been a rabbit hole. That could have been a really big a landmine, actually.
Oh, wow. But what a funny, that's so great that he wanted just to know that everything was good. And I love Oliver Parrot too, your character. And this is your third book starring this character. So let's talk a little bit about your inspiration for Oliver.
Well, I'm glad you asked me about him because I really love Oliver Parrot also. He's as different from me as possible on the outside. He's young, he's Black, he's an athlete. He's been raised in a single parent family. He was raised in an impoverished neighborhood, got a football scholarship to Syracuse. He was a football hero there. He met his fiancée, future wife, at Syracuse, and she went on to 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan with the Navy. So when the series opens, they're engaged, but she's away, and the only contact that they have is through Zooms, weekly Zooms. But the inspiration for Parrot came from the fact that I worked in several urban high schools in the nation, and I got to meet a lot of wonderful kids and their families. And there are a lot of young Black men who are smart, they're well-grounded, they have good moral fiber, they have good values, they want to make a difference, they want to give back to the community with their talents. And they rise above the circumstances and the obstacles that they have in life to be successful and to contribute to society. And I'm so proud of those young men. And a lot of them have sort of blended in my mind to become Oliver Parrot. And the reason he chose criminal justice as a career path is because he wanted to be able to give back to the community. He wanted to be able to right wrongs.
Mhm.
He wanted to be able to help victims and help their families and protect people and keep them safer, restore order. There's a lot that a police officer is charged with doing that is really noble. And sometimes that gets lost, especially in the news today when
Yeah.
so much is said about police officers. But that was how he wanted to make his mark on the world.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. He
Yeah.
has a lot of baggage, though, because he lost his father when he was a young man, and and he had all of these struggles, and his cousin, whom he was very close to, was killed in collateral damage in a police event.
Mhm.
So all of those things really prey on his mind. And then Tanya, I guess this is a bit of a spoiler, but Tanya comes back from Afghanistan with PTSD.
Mm.
So now Parrot has to deal with that also. And he's a great guy. He wants more than anything else in the world to be a force for good. When evil comes into people's lives, he wants to fix it. And yes, he is successful every single time, but there's always another time. There's always another case to solve, another problem that comes into the world.
Yeah.
So he's needed over and over again to right the wrongs in people's lives.
Of course, absolutely. And what does he wish for most in his life? And will he ever get it?
He wishes for peace and good and truth and justice,
Mm-hmm.
not only for the people that he serves, but also in his own personal life. He wants to feel good about himself. And one other thing about him that I didn't mention is that he's not at all materialistic. And he works in this very, very wealthy community, probably, if not the most wealthy, one of the most wealthy communities in the United States. So here he is coming from a really impoverished background, and not making a whole lot of money as a police detective in a very small department. And he comes up against these people who are very sophisticated, very powerful, and he's not at all daunted by their money or their power. As an outsider, he's actually able to see through them probably better than if he were wealthy.
Right.
So there's that going on too.
Yeah. And the stories are so good. They're so good, Saralyn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I do notice there's some themes of social inequity, not just in this book, but in your other books like Murder of Principle. And I'll just show the cover really quick. And in Bad Blood Sisters, a little bit there too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think maybe you have a question you want to ask?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the question. Why do you write about that topic?
I think maybe because of my own personal background, because I've associated with some very, very wealthy people, and I've associated with some very, very poor people in my life. I've always been fascinated by the way certain people regard money or things. Some people are entirely driven by money, the acquisition of money. And some people aren't. Some people, even people who have it, don't even value it that much. So it's always been fascinating to me. I've also noticed that there are some poor people who are really happy and content, satisfied with their lives and their relationships. And there's some rich people who are very, very unhappy,
Yep.
and no amount of money in the world can protect them from trouble,
Mhm.
and no amount of money can really buy happiness. So I guess I've always had all these money things stirring around in my mind, and decided to write about them. And so the contrast is where it is for me. I think there are many insights and things that we can learn from money and from the contrast between,
Yeah.
the haves and the
And
have-nots.
how people associate with it or don't, or
Right.
yeah.
And I want to show that economic and social status don't determine character,
Right.
and they don't determine happiness. So the posh Brandywine Valley that I write about, and this outsider detective, there's such a stark contrast that it leads to some meaningful insights. And the same thing with all of the other books.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a really great topic, and that's probably why your books interest me, because it's definitely a topic for consideration. And in addition to the Murder of Principal and to one children's book, Naughty Nana, you've also published the standalone Bad Blood Sisters. Quinn McFarland, the main character in that book, is haunted by her past friendship, and she swore not to tell anyone about the blood oath that she made with Anna French. So tell us a little bit about this book too.
Oh, I'd love to talk about Quinn. She's a 29-year-old who has stagnated in her social relationships ever since her BFF, who is Anna, and also her blood sister, they did the blood sister ceremony together, betrayed her. And that happened 15 years ago, and Quinn has just never been able to get over that. So something that happened long ago that Quinn and Anna experienced together was traumatic. And they took this oath that they would never talk about it. And Quinn has been faithful to that oath, even though the friendship has dissolved. She has kept that secret. Well, Quinn works in death services. She works in the mortuary that her family owns. And one day she is working at the mortuary, and Anna's body is brought in. She's been killed. And that's the inciting incident in the book. And now Quinn has all these mixed feelings and lots of regrets and memories from the past. She's kind of haunted by this friendship that went bad. And all of a sudden, Quinn finds herself in the middle of a murder mystery, an old one and a new one, and her own personal safety is at risk. And she doesn't know whether she should or shouldn't break that oath now that Anna's dead. So her life is in a lot of turmoil. What she wants in life is just a normal life. She's been wanting that for a long time, to have a normal life more than anything in the world. But she has a lot of obstacles to go through before she can get it, if ever.
Yeah, and as the story evolves, it's it's really tense. What you begin to get these little tickles of what she's seen, what they saw together, what the blood oath is about, and then it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I wrote that book during COVID.
Yeah.
And during lockdown. So I was writing like all day and all night, every day. And that was the fastest book that I ever wrote. And it was such a delight, because I could escape from the real world of COVID and all those worries and just be Quinn. You know,
Yeah.
I could be somebody else, someplace else in a different time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that.
That's great. So it seems like the writing police procedure come naturally for you. And we've talked about your resources. But what do you think is harder for you? Writing the first or the last sentence?
Definitely the first sentence. I will write and rewrite the first sentence of my books maybe 50 times before I send them off to be published. And the reason that I stress so much over the first sentence is because it has to carry such a heavy load.
Mhm.
It has to introduce the reader to the book's situation, the book's character, the book's voice, the book's mood. All of that has to be carried by that first sentence. And yet it can't be long. It can't be overdone. It
Right.
can't be underdone. You just have to cook it just right. And it has to make the reader want to read more. So you can't give away too much.
Right.
Can't give away too little. It's just like, it's a very picky thing.
Yeah.
The last sentence, on the other hand, is just fun to write because it's a great wrap up, and it's, you know, it polishes off the book, and I don't stress over that at all.
I stress over both. But you're right about the first sentence. It needs to be like an appetizer, you know, and draw readers in and make them want to keep reading. So, but I think that's true of the whole first chapter, don't you?
True of the whole book.
Well, yeah. So what's next for Saralyn Richard? What do you have up your sleeves?
Oh, I'm writing the 4th Detective Parrot book right now. And I'll just tell you that it starts off with an abandoned baby. So that's all I can tell you. I don't even have a title for it yet. And but I'm knee deep in that book. And I usually don't write 2 Parrot books in a row. I like to give him a rest, and I like to give me a rest in between cases. But this particular story came to me with such full force, it just demanded to be told. And so I had to write it. I was compelled to start writing it. So I'm having a good time with that. And once I finish that, I have a great idea for a screenplay.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's going to be next after the 4th Parrot book.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, is there anything else that I've forgotten to ask that you would like to talk about today?
Well, I would love to connect with all of the listeners. So you can find me at saralynrichard.com or murderintheone%.com. And you can sign up for my monthly newsletters there. And they're really fun. I like to interact with all of my readers and all of my newsletter subscribers. And if you do read my books, please communicate with me, say hello, leave reviews, and become part of the adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Saralyn.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tracy. It's been fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.